Today, what we're going to do is, and this was recommended to me, we're going to call it Back to the Basics. And really what this is about is looking at the basics of nutrition and supplementation and just a few key things we need to dig into and unpack. But really, when it comes to daily conversations, and what I mean by that is conversations that should be and hopefully are happening in your clubs every day with either prospective clients or existing clients. This is where you can really dig into and show value and solution. Now, I know some people look at it as, well, oh gosh darn it, I got to start selling supplements. That's not what we're about. We're about providing solutions. And really, I'm excited about this particular training because when you look at going back to the basics and what we're going to talk about, it really is nothing more than showing them a powerful and important solution to them getting results. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at two things today. When we talk about basics, we're going to look at micronutrients, which is vitamins and minerals, and we're going to talk about macronutrients, which are, as you probably know, protein, carbs, and fats. Okay, now micronutrients, basically, both of these actually are essential for life. We need them. But furthermore than just sustaining us and being able to, have life, it's also critical to our results and how quickly and efficiently we can get results. So micronutrients is, and if you're taking notes, hopefully you guys are coming to these trainings with paper and a pen, because there's some things I want you to hopefully absorb and write down. And first and foremost, what is a micronutrient? Well, it's a vitamin and mineral. It's something the body needs in smaller amounts, but is critical. Macronutrients is something the body needs in large amounts. And, there's nothing too cute about this. Micro, small, macro, big. So it needs it in large amounts. And that's your energy source, your protein, carbs, and fats. Provides the body energy. Okay? Now, I started out talking about this, that these are the daily conversations we should be and hopefully are having in the clubs, because if we're not talking about micronutrients or macronutrients in the role of protein, carbs, and fats for their goals, the client is probably going to go seek out information and want to learn it. And us as trainers in this industry and being a former trainer, this is something I constantly got into with my clients. Because I want them to look at me as the expert. I want them to look at me more than just the person that's putting them on an exercise program. There's more to what we can do and more value, and having these conversations is absolutely critical, because God forbid we don't want them to go to Google and start Googling, hey, what are these vitamins and minerals I need? Because there is good information in the world of Google, but there's a wealth of BS. What I mean by BS is bad science, not the other word, bad science. There's so much out there. So that's what we're going to get into. And really what it comes down to is, listen, when you're dealing with micronutrients, we don't want gaps. Okay? You've heard me say that a lot. You do not want gaps. And macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats, there is a balance to best results. And there's a balance that needs to happen to ensure a lot of different things. No matter if you're trying to build muscle, get ripped, lose weight, tone up, all those things. There is a specific balance that we're going to dig into. So first of all, let's talk about those micronutrients then. And listen, when you're talking micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, and I am going to throw in omega-3 fatty acids on here, we could spend hours upon hours. When I first did my study on micronutrients, there's a book about 300 plus pages, and I forgot, literally guys, I probably forgot about 96% of what I learned in the study of micronutrients. Because let's face it, a lot of stuff, so much information, but what I do know and what I can share with you is this. These yellow highlighted vitamin, or we'll call it micronutrients here, over these 5 right here, over 50% of the population is deficient in them. Okay? And some of these are even more, a higher deficiency in people. So we know there's a deficiency going on. But what we have to realize is some of these micronutrients that we need are hugely important, like magnesium as an example. It plays a role in over 300 enzymes in the processes of what these enzymes do, and they're dependent upon magnesium. Things like controlling blood pressure, blood sugar, muscle nerve function, muscle contraction, and even absorption of protein. So why would you not want to be concerned and make sure you're not deficient in that? And then you look at things like vitamin A. If you're deficient in vitamin A, which some research shows nowadays up to 90%, you could run the risk of muscle weakness, gastrointestinal issues, even possible depression. Vitamin E is another one. That's a powerful antioxidant. It helps with immune function, muscle repair, which is very important, of course, right? The majority of people are deficient in vitamin E. And another thing, write this down because I don't know if I've ever shared this with you before. Getting a generic over-the-counter vitamin, and really the biggest difference you want to look at is actually vitamin E. Synthetic, just not going to cut it. And how you know something is synthetic vitamin E, it's a DL-alpha. There's an L in there, DL-alpha. Natural vitamin E, which you can get higher absorption, is D-alpha. Okay, so a lot of your synthetic, cheaper, generic multivitamins out there, vitamin E is absolutely a critical ingredient into that. If you see DL-alpha, it's basically garbage. You're basically going to get very little absorption of that synthetic. That's the one thing about vitamin E that's unique, is the synthetic form is just not going to cut it. Okay, so not only that, I want to also talk about, I did throw up omega-3 fatty acids on here because some studies show that up to 70% of people are deficient in omega-3s. And when you talk about, well, I would say one of the most sold over-the-counter supplements, whether you're at World, GNC, or wherever, or even a pharmacy, which is actually pharmacists and doctors, this is the supplement they recommend the most because we know how much value omega-3 is, but we know that majority of people are deficient in it. We got to look at that micronutrient and realize, hey, there's something to talk about here because there's so much value to anti-inflammatory is a key thing with omega-3s. Also, even breaking down fat. These fatty acids, these healthy fats, help with the metabolism breakdown of bad fat. And then muscle recovery, and then heart health, and immune system. I mean, boom, boom, boom. You look at this micronutrient, it's pretty valuable. The next thing I want to talk about is, well, a lot of people understand nowadays that these micronutrients play a role in health and optimal body function. But just some of the things that I just talked about play a critical role in fitness and their results, whether they're building muscle or losing weight. The next thing is, do people really know where they need to get their micronutrients? I get that some people are pretty savvy and they realize, calcium, you're going to find that in dairy products like yogurt and red meat has iron and those things. But they're not going to know all this. Like if you look at all these, like vitamin A, sweet potatoes, one of the best sources of vitamin A, almonds, vitamin E, and you go down and look through all these micronutrients, these are considered the best sources of those micronutrients. Now, the next thing is say, okay, well, some people realize that, or you can teach them this, but then do they know how much? Do they know how much they need to consume? And that's where you're going to find most people do not. Like if you look at, let's just take broccoli. I'll be straight up honest with you guys. I'm an epic fail at micronutrients. If I had to make sure I got all my micronutrients through food, I would be a disaster. I would be an epic fail because it's hard. And then let me back it up with this. The first 6 you see on there, the top row, and I'm gonna actually move this out of my way here. The top row going to vitamin E. Those are considered the 6 most essential vitamins and minerals that there are. In order to get the best sources of where you get those vitamins and in the right amount, you're looking at 2,700 calories, okay? Just to get those 6 in the right source in the right quantity. And hopefully I'm making sense here. So what you can conclude from there is just to get those, you have to consume 2,700 calories of that particular source of food that's best for that vitamin. That's almost borderline impossible to try to get a good nutrition plan that you're getting every single micronutrient that's involved. Okay. Then we also have to take a look at when we're talking about results and also where other nutrient loss comes in. We're going to start digging into this, and you've seen this before. We're going to start with food production. When we look at micronutrients, we realize based on technology, the way agriculture and the way technology has been beneficial has also been not so beneficial. Because you're able to get so much out of the ground in so much area of land nowadays with all that machinery and all that technology and fertilizers and chemicals and all that stuff, that it stripped away things like mineral out of our soil. So much so that you can just look at that slide and conclude in less than 100 years, man, that's a big gap that's been created and how we get nutrients through our food. And then also the next step is from production, you go to preparation. Some of the things like processed foods, we talked about this before, where you look at how food nowadays is processed, where you're taking out things and putting in things, it's definitely changing. But it's more than just that. It's more than just beyond processing. It's also things like storage methods, how food is now stored, how it's genetically modified. Those things right there also impact the nutrient level, almost up to 30%. So by the time you get from food production to preparation, you have some serious loss in micronutrients. We have to acknowledge that. The last thing, as far as nutrient loss goes, I want to talk about is exercise. Listen, for the life of me, I don't get and understand how some people don't realize that, you know what? If I'm exercising and moving more, my nutrient need goes up. Especially if I'm a new client, new member, who's been doing jack squat, and now I'm going to start doing good squats. You know, my nutrient need is going to go up. And I have to realize that exercise is a stress, and it's a good stress, but I'm also going to be requiring to get more nutrients in my body because I'm also losing them, but I'm also going to need them for repair and recovery. And for the life of me, again, I don't know how as a trainer or professional, I wouldn't want to have that conversation as a solution. You know, I'm not even selling anything right now. I'm just having that conversation of as a solution. Listen, we know no one eats perfect. We know the nutrients aren't in our food like they used to be. And 1% meets a good nutrition ideally in our country as far as eating, and only about 10% eat the recommended fruits and vegetables. So I'm figuring you're in that boat, right, Susie? And then the fact that you're moving more, your nutrient need goes up. That is something every trainer, in my opinion, should be having with their client, especially at the start. Now, certainly that conversation and that solution building can lead to the opportunity to provide them a solution. And yes, I'm going to say a sale. And that's where you come in with something like a basic foundation. And there's no pun intended here. We're talking about back to basics on micronutrients and macronutrients. But basic foundation, as far as covering your micronutrient need, I mean, what a beautiful way to say, let's get you on $36 is the retail cost, guys. And you probably know this. $36 for a 30-day supply of the daily essentials, the multivitamin mineral antioxidant complex with your omega-3 fish oil. That investment is not, I mean, that if you're talking about it as a solution, and it's important for everyone, no matter if you're trying to build muscle, have a six-pack, or just lose that 30 pounds, that investment of $36 a month, man, there should be a lot of people getting on the basic foundation program. Because at the start, we haven't even got into protein, carbs, and fats yet, macronutrients. We are going to in a little bit here. But just to start with the micronutrients and the importance of all those vitamins and minerals and the omega-3, there's so much value to offer them, something that is not going to be an all-in-your-face, hey, high-cost deal. It's a $36 a month basic foundation to meet your nutrients that you need in a therapeutic dosage with the vitamins that are natural, that are time-released, and also cover mineral and antioxidant in it. So it's not just your basic multivitamin. It's not synthetic in nature like a lot of people that buy that $10 bottle. You're going to get better absorption, and you're going to get a 100% certified mercury-free fish oil, premium fish oil that's got your omega-3s in there, and cover that. So we're covering any gaps, and we're making sure by starting on a basic foundation that we got everything covered to drive results. Because these vitamins and minerals and even omegas, you rope them all together, they impact everything from immune system health to even your metabolism. I mean, I always say daily essentials is your metabolism primer, right? Because if you're short on any nutrients at all, you could indirectly affect the ability to maximize how your metabolism functions. And then, of course, stave off disease and all these wonderful things. But that's the starting point. So now let's switch gears and let's go big. We're going to go into macronutrients. And when we look at macronutrients, I gotta throw this up here. Here's the typical diet. Now, I'm not gonna say this is 100% dialed in exactly the percentage of how our society eats food. I will tell you, based on the research and things that I've dug into, this is kind of the wheelhouse. And I have to say I agree with it. When you look at proteins, people don't have trouble eating carbohydrates. There's no trouble at all. In fact, if you remember back to a lot of my other trainings, what do most people eat or drink? Sugar drinks, cakes, candy, soda, all that stuff, right? And higher fat, I'm guessing is because of obviously the types of what they're eating, processed food, fast food, things like that. And I gotta believe most people are not eating enough protein. So when I look at this, I agree with it. I say, you know what, that looks pretty good. But the one thing that really screams out to me is that's actually kind of close to ideal. If you know anything about optimal balance of protein, carbs, and fats, that's kind of close, because you do want more carbohydrates. The only thing that's really not close is the protein. So that's one thing we got to look at is most people are not consuming enough protein. I'm going to back that up with also research that shows that on average, Women are eating about 70 grams of protein. Men are eating about 100 grams. Okay, now if you're not doing nothing and you're sitting on the couch and that's what you do 18 hours a day, you're probably fine. But that's not good for us because we're not dealing with those people, hopefully, right? So the fact is people are not eating enough protein. When we look at what is optimal, 45 to 65% should be carbohydrates of your calories. 20 to 30% should be protein, 15 to 25% should be fat. Now, you look at that and you're like, well, Ryan, that's kind of a big variable there. Well, you're right. When you look at macronutrients, not one size fits all. It does have to vary, and it has to vary on a couple different things. Two most important things, if I have to keep it basic for you, two most important things are going to be your body weight and your physical activity level. So this is what would be considered optimal. If you're in this wheelhouse of your nutrition and what you're eating, you're in a pretty much a good balance because it's vital to your results. Macronutrients set you up for long-term success. So listen to this. Calories depend on how your body weight changes, whether you're up or down based on your deficiencies or surplus in calories. But macronutrient balance determines how your body looks. How much muscle tissue do you keep? That's one of the first things we got to talk about. Because if you're not eating enough protein or know how much protein you need to eat or not giving your client the grams or the wheelhouse of where they need to be for protein percentage, you're really not setting themselves up or yourself, if you're looking at your nutrition, to preserve muscle tissue and make sure you have the ability to even potentially grow muscle tissue. Because we know what protein is important for. Also, if you're not eating enough carbohydrates, you're not sparing your protein to be used for what it wants to be used for. So let's say you're in the boathouse of, protein's this great and awesome thing and I need to eat all this protein, but I'm not eating enough carbohydrates. Your body's going to turn all these substrates, whether it's fat, carbohydrates, and protein, down into glucose and use it for energy. So you're stripping away a lot of the protein. And it's also not great for the body. And that's another topic we can get into. So it is important to have balance for carbs to do their role, protein to do their role, and fat to do their role. And even things like how you feel, your fullness and satiety, it's important in that aspect too because our bodies are smart. If we are cutting carbohydrates, like a lot of diets out there that do like 75% of your calories needs to be fat or only 20% needs to be carbohydrates, I promise you're going to want a donut. Your body wants those carbohydrates, which we're going to talk about the importance of that in a little bit. It's going to say, I'm missing the boat here. You're going to crave something. Or let's say you're in the wheelhouse of, I'm going to strip my fat away. My fat grams. Fat's bad. It's 9 calories per gram. It's too many calories. I'm going to cut it so low. I guarantee you're going to be the first person in line at McDonald's wanting to get that cheeseburger. Because your body's going to say, I need fat. There's reasons why. Fat is part of this balance. So you can't go against. Just like if you're dehydrated. Your body's going to let you know, and eventually you're going to want that cold glass of ice water. Okay? Same with things like long-term success. We got to talk about not only keeping muscle and growing muscle, keeping ourselves satisfied, we got to talk about performance and strength. Listen, if your carbs aren't where they need to be, you're probably going to not feel too good because you're not going to have the performance and energy you need to kill it in your workout. Or if you're not eating enough protein, your strength may suffer because we know protein's important for recovery. And by the time you get to your next workout, maybe you're not feeling like it and your strength's not there. And ultimately, it comes down to this right here is full of energy. Because if you're eating macronutrients balanced, you're in those percentages, you're going to be full of energy, full of focus, and ready to crush it. And then when you look at these things to long-term success, guys, this is really where it's at. If you educate them on balance and you spend that time and you talk about it and educate it, this is what sets people up for success. Because what doesn't set people up for success is when they don't know and then they do what other people do. They diet. Diets have a successful rate of 5%. And there's a reason why. Because they're restrictive in nature, they're unbalanced, and a lot of times they're pulling stuff out that is ridiculous, like eat nothing but fat and low carbs, eat nothing but high protein, low carbs. We know that eventually they're going to gain that weight back and sometimes in excess of where they started. So this balance is absolutely key. Let's talk a little bit more about this. So we're going to dig into protein next. And remember, the 20 to 30% is where we need to be with protein. Here's why protein's important. News shocker. It's muscle tissue, repair, recovery of muscle tissue, right? Also formation of hormones, enzyme, antibodies. It regulates the body's water balance, okay? So then we know how important it is. What is the recommendation? So that's the next thing we're going to look at. But before we look at specific recommendations, if you don't know this, I hope you take this and understand this, is according to experts in research, the body can only take and absorb and assimilate so much protein. And that number is about 91 grams per pound of weight. That's the max amount of grams of protein can use. Okay, so hold on to that number in a little bit. So the recommendations are going to be right in this wheelhouse. If it's weight loss and an active lifestyle, you're going to be around 20 to 25% of your total calories should be coming from protein. And if you remember that formula that I love to talk about and use, you're going to take their weight, once you get it into kilograms, and times it by 1.5, because that's your typical number for someone that wants to lose weight and is working out and is active. Now, if it's someone who's a competitive athlete, high intensity, meaning they're a ton of high resistance training or even cardiovascular training, or a bodybuilder, we can go up to that 30% of total calories coming from protein. And you would times their weight in kilograms by 2. And here's what it would look like. Calculate protein per grams. And I decided just to do a male, 220 pounds. That's an athlete or trying to put on some serious muscle tissue. They're going to be about 200 grams. Okay? That's a formula that is my favorite and is one of the best ones to use and educate on. Now, how does that compare to over here, understanding that there's only so much protein that someone can use? Because I can tell you a guy or gal that if I'm around them long enough that is eating too much protein, they straight out smell. I mean, honestly, if you know anyone that eats more protein than their body needs, then they're going to smell a little funky, right? And they're probably not going to be too happy of a person because they're probably cutting their carbs because they think that's what they need to do. So you're dealing with a smelly, moody person, maybe. I don't know. But here's the deal. That is about the number that most can absorb. So if we take a different route to that protein number, and we take that 220-pound male times 9.1 grams, boom, how beautiful is that? It comes out to 200 grams. So that's the upper level, that's the max level of protein. But I encourage you, when you look at this stuff, start looking at how this relates to coaching those people on the importance of macronutrients. So the next one, let's keep going. Carbohydrates, 45 to 65%. That is the biggest variable of where you could be, right? The other ones are 10% difference. This is 20% difference of the total calories. And we know that carbohydrates is the preferred source of energy for the body, provides fuel during exercise. We already talked about how it spares protein because it's the body's best and most efficient way to break down carbohydrates for energy. It's way better than fat as far as how the body wants to do it. And it's way easier on the body than breaking down protein via gluconeogenesis for energy, which is very hard on the body. So having enough sufficient carbohydrates plays a key role in preserving muscle by way of making the protein be what it's used for. It's converted to blood glucose, and it's the almost exclusive form of energy for your brain and central nervous system, which is extremely important. Now, the recommendations on it, here's where the variable comes in. I don't even know why I have sedentary on here because, I should probably just delete it because we're not dealing with sedentary people, but from an education standpoint, it makes sense. If you're not moving or doing jack squat, your need for energy and your need to replenish energy stores is just not there. So you would be on the bottom of 45% of your total calories. Now, if you're active and you're on a weight loss plan, you want to be in the wheelhouse of 50 to 60%. Now, if you're that person, that athlete, heavy trainer again, or bodybuilder, 60 to 65% total from calories. Now, how you can figure this out, we just talked about how to figure out protein. It's pretty simple. You look at example of where's your calorie target or what target are they on? And this is let's take 1400 calories, which is a pretty aggressive calorie per day mark for, let's say, mostly going to be for women that want to lose weight. So you would take that calorie allotment, times it by 60%, because we want 60% of their total calories come from carbohydrates. That's 840 calories devoted to carbohydrate intake. We know that that's 4 calories per gram. So we're going to conclude that that's 200 grams of carbohydrates is kind of what we want to shoot for based on this particular person. Okay? Now I want to take it a step further because I think there's so much value into discussing macronutrients and balance and how it is absolutely critical to results that I want to do a little case study with you. And before you say, well, Ryan, you didn't talk about fat. Listen, fat is important. It's an important macronutrient. It helps, obviously with vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, K, helps transport, mobilize those vitamins, absolutely crucial in hormonal production and supporting the cells and the function of the cells and a lot of other things, and satiety and all that. It kind of becomes third place in the sense that here's how I'm going to show you and how you figure that out. So here's my first thing. Number one, if we're going to do a case study here, we're going to look at, I just took a 160-pound female. She wants to lose weight. She is active. And we're going to put, because of how active she is, let's say she's doing 4 or 5 workouts a week, we're going to give her a little bit more calories, and we're going to put her at 1,600 calories per day. That's what we're going to roll with. And here's what we're going to do. One of the first things we're going to talk about is protein, aren't we? Aren't we going to set it up to be, listen, we got to find that grams that you need. And if we do that, and we discover that times by 1.5, we get it to 109 grams, 438 of those calories, because there's 4 calories per gram in protein, is devoted to protein. And that's kind of that net number you want to strive for, which is 27%. So it does fit within our balance, right? So we're looking good. So, and if you look at that, there's value to showing this stuff. I guarantee it. And then carbohydrates, the next one. We're going to flip it a little bit. We're going to take that total calorie allotment, 1,600 calories, times it by 55% of total calories, because we're in that optimal balance range. That's 880 calories. Divide by that 4 per gram. We're going to allot 220 grams, which is 55% of the total calories. Okay, we're in the green. We're looking good. Now, fat, like I said, is kind of the third one that you look at, and you really just minus it out. So if we know that 438 calories goes towards protein, 880 calories goes towards carbs, we have a total of 1318 in calories. Minus that from our 1,600, that's 282 calories left. That's going to be fat. That's 31 grams of fat, 18% of total calories. Boom! We just hit optimal balance, right? And let me tell you how important this is, because as simple as that approach may seem, and as important as that is, a lot of times we're not having that conversation, or a lot of times, majority of the times, our members and clients don't even know this. And it's important because I'll give you a story. When I was doing consulting with clubs, I was out in North Carolina, and I went into the club, and the owner said, hey, Todd Coffey's here, and he's a pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. I said, oh, awesome. He's like, yeah, I want to introduce you to him. So I went up to him, was talking to him. It was off season. He had Tommy John surgery the year before. He was up for a renewal on his contract. So you're talking a good negotiation that needs to happen. And we know how much pitchers make in the MLB. They make a lot of money. And he was 6'5", 275 pounds. Okay? And I knew, here's what I knew. I knew he was in off season. He was doing his workouts. I knew that even though I understand exercise physiology, and that's my background, and I'm not going to get him on an exercise plan, because he has a strength and conditioning coach from the Cincinnati Reds that has all the players on a program. I wanted to know, what does this dude's nutrition look like? What is he doing? Because as I found out, he was trying to lose 40 pounds. Because if you ever, I don't know what it's like to be a professional athlete, but I do know if I'm up for millions of dollars in a contract renewal, I'm going to make sure that I show that I'm putting effort in and I'm getting my body where it needs to be and prepping for the season. And if I have to lose some weight, I'm going to lose some weight. Well, here he was doing a diet, and it was a thin and healthy diet. And what I realized in talking to him, I did not know much about the diet, but I knew this. They restricted caffeine. Caffeine was against the rule for losing weight. Right there, that would kill me. I'd be out. Boom. I'm done. But I also understood that it was restrictive in a lot of other different things. And one of the things that I found in talking with Todd was his calorie intake was insane. It was way too low. Yes, he was on it for a couple weeks and he lost, I think it was 10 pounds. His calorie deficit was way too big for a professional athlete, in big part to strength, performance, and muscle tissue. And so when we looked at his measurements, and they actually did body fat percentage, a couple things in there, and they had his weight that he lost. And I looked at it and I said, Todd, man, I'm not going to step on anyone's toes here, but I'm going to guess that if you keep on this track, you're going to lose some serious muscle tissue. Okay, so to make the long story short, I ended up consulting with him and working on his nutrition for the whole off season. He lost 35 pounds, strength went up, built some lean muscle mass. But here's a guy who you would think would have access to some of the best nutrition and things like that. I actually did something very similar. Now, a little bit more complex than what we just went through, but similar in nature in the fact that, you know what, there's an optimal balance we need to stick to. It's a rule. And it's right here. How much carbohydrates, fats, and protein percentage-wise. And we need to understand why that's important. And we need to understand it applies to your body weight and your physical activity level, right? So there is some variable there, but at the end of the day, man, it's something that people need to be educated on and get a good starting point, okay? Now, for some of you, you may look at this and be like, wow, that's a lot of stuff happening right here. Well, keep it simple. You know that we have meal plans. We have meal plans from different calorie marks for weight loss, different calorie marks for performance and building muscle tissue. You have access to these on our website, on the Nutrition Locker. Okay? And what it helps do is it helps give you a starting point to, at the very least, be able to educate on nutrition. And they're designed by a registered dietitian, so there's some value there, okay? So there's some good stuff when you look at the balance is there, the difference in calories, and really what it's about is it's coaching, not dictating. So it's being able to use these sheets on what we just talked about with micronutrients and macronutrients, and be able to talk through that. You know, look at the calories. There's a reason why this particular calorie mark is what it is. Now, some clients, you know, they may be on the 1400, some may be on the 1800. Okay, and that's a whole nother conversation. But at the end of the day, we're teaching them calorie control. We're teaching them that, you know what, there's balance here. A lot of these meals in here are going to be balanced, so you don't have to think about it. The other thing, it allows us to be able to, I as a trainer, when I was training, one of the number one things I always have my clients have homework. And this particular thing was great because when I would do nutrition with them, I want them to take this home, what we talked about, and you're gonna come back to me, and you're gonna come back to me with things like pick 3 or 4 meals out of here, because I know people are creatures of habit. Look, you know, people don't eat 10 different breakfast options. I haven't seen it. Maybe there's someone out there that does, but at the end of the day, there's usually only 2 or 3 different breakfasts, and really what it's about is finding out what they like. You know, here's 21 days. Pick 3 that you think is absolutely easy. Like for me, it's a whole grain cup of cereal with milk and a little bit of blueberries. I could do that all day. I can make that and love it and be good. And then I have 2 other options, okay? But same with snacks. Dinner's the only variable, and that's what I always have my clients. They'd have a calorie mark. You got 500 calories for dinner or 800 calories, whatever it is. Don't go over it, because dinner is where you do have the variable. I mean, that's your meal where you're eating the biggest variety of different foods. But the point here is we can make it simple in nature, but effective in long term, because you can stick to something like this, can't you? I mean, if you're eating pretty similar, but you're giving yourself enough options, you're going to be all right, and you're following good nutrition. And then lastly, if at all possible, track and manage it. You know, I'd always have my clients, especially at the start, tell me what you're eating. Go track it and bring it back to me. Or using a software, you know, whatever it is. Being able to track and manage it, at least being able to look at their measurements and find out what's going on. If you're not losing weight, we know why. If you are losing weight, we obviously know why. Or building muscle or losing muscle. These are things you can dig into. So that's definitely important too. And then finally, as a tool for nutrition, I love this, but we also have to recognize that in the macronutrient world, you have, sticking to the basics, basic products to fulfill and help support that macronutrient balance. And the first one, which is really good for weight loss and toning, is the RX meal, because it's calorie control. It has healthy fats. It has the fiber. 10 grams of fiber is no joke. You know, I mean, that's going to help you feel satisfied because it's bulk. You can't break it down, and it's soluble fiber. It's Fibersol 2, which is clinically researched fiber. Google that. It's one of the best things you can do for fiber, and it delays post-meal hunger, which is huge for weight loss. It's low sugar, and it has your protein. So it has protein, fiber, and fats, which takes care of number one, a good balance of the macronutrients for helping you feel satisfied, full. But also, here's the other point I want to make is we talked about some people that are more active. It's okay because they need more carbohydrates. Guess what? Add some fruit in it. Add some natural fruit. Get some carbohydrates. I actually recommend people, and I do it myself, depending on the day. I'll do 12 ounces of orange juice with vanilla ice cream. It's phenomenal. And I get my simple carbohydrates in there. So some people, the beauty of the RX meal is it's flexible, because most meal replacements on the market, they're high in carbohydrates. This one is meant to be satisfying and fulfilling and get you protein, fats, and the fiber to help with that. but it's also flexible. You can add those carbohydrates. Okay, now the other one, building blocks protein. This is going to be for those which we know a lot of people, they don't know that number they need to hit for protein. Well, here's a high-end protein that obviously you're able to offer them. And it's 25 grams of protein per serving. It's a matrix protein. You hopefully know that by now. It's got 3 different proteins in there. So it helps with some quick absorption protein and some more medium to longer lasting protein. So you maximize that absorption over time. Okay, and we know that protein is so important that at the end of the day, if it's RX meal or building blocks protein, they're both going to be beneficial. It's just one is a little bit more higher end of the fiber and the healthy fat. So it's a matter of choice. And that's what it comes down to is, to wrap this up, guys, when we look at going back to the basics and now focusing on the supplementation side of micronutrients and macronutrients, this, I hope, for all of you, is the conversation daily that goes on. Whether it's a new prospect, whether it's an existing client, there's no reason why talking about the Daily Essentials multivitamin and the oils, omega-3s, as part of that whole micronutrient world we just explored, is not a solution that they should be recommended and hopefully get on. And then as far as balance, macronutrients, keeping that balance and making sure you're hitting those numbers and how important that is to long-term success, we have to recognize that some people, a meal replacement is going to help them stay balanced and get those healthy meals and snacks in a day, hit that 5 to 6 magic number and not have to worry so much about what is the balance, because we're going to help them out. And we know that, going back to the carbohydrate thing, people are eating their carbs. They don't have trouble eating their carbs. So let's get them something in between that maybe has less carbs. Or if they need more carbohydrates, add fruit in, add orange juice in. Do something. Building blocks protein. If someone's not getting enough protein, we know the importance of that protein, and hitting that number, it's a great solution for them. And it tastes great, and it's one of the top proteins you'll find. Remember, I always say, compare the natural occurring amino acid profile to any other protein out there. Not one person has ever given me a different profile that once they found it, if they could find it. We put it on the label, and you can compare it. So it's a premium protein. So hopefully that was some good stuff. And as always, guys, I appreciate you joining on these calls. If you need anything, let me know. If you have any questions or you want some more information on the stuff that we dug into, let me know. Otherwise, I'll let you guys get back to what you got to do. So I appreciate it.